Hello, everyone. I would like to share with you a moment in Black history. When I was asked to do this, I was perplexed because I didn't know what to share. Our history is so vast and inspiring. Then I watched the events unfold on January the 6th at the Capitol. It brought back memories, some that I had forgotten, and a lot that I had learned, but a lot that I had also forgotten. So today, I will be sharing with you some things that you may already know and some things that you may not know, lest we forget. When captive Americans first set foot in North America, they found themselves in the midst of a slave society. During most of the 17th and 18th centuries, slavery was law in every one of the 13 colonies, including the North and the South. Imagine having to learn new customs and a language while being oppressed in a system of slavery. They had no authority to make decisions on their own. Yes, the slave master made decisions for them concerning their lives and whether they could be bought, whether they could be sold, whether they were tortured, rewarded, educated, or even killed. All these decisions were made by their their slaveholders. Now, Africans also brought many skills with them, something the slaveholders could not take away. West Africans were experienced at navigating the waterways and helped open up the rivers and canals of the Northwest frontier. African Americans had to use wit, wisdom, and wholeness to overcome the oppressive state they were forced into. Africans were not only enslaved by whites, but by the Native Americans also. There were 5 tribes of Native Americans that held a significant number of slaves to work the land and also to be sold as profit. They were called the 5 tribes. Some of these slaves held by Native Americans had children. During the Dawes Act of 1887, Native Americans, along with some of their freed slaves, were offered 160 acres of land and U.S. citizenship. During this time, some Africans who had mixed Native American/Creed heritage received the 160 acres. When oil was discovered in Oklahoma, it was on some of the parcels of land owned by these African Americans or African Creeks or freedmen as they were called. Some became wealthy and started small towns all over Oklahoma. Oklahoma was home to the largest number of Black-owned towns. You may have heard of one of these, Black Wall Street. Black Wall Street was known for Greenwood, Oklahoma. Black Wall Street had Black-owned churches, schools, hospitals, hotels, banks, and movies. Greenwood was named Black Wall Street and was started by Ottawa Gurley, who had invested money in real estate in Arkansas. He later moved to Tulsa, Oklahoma, where he purchased 40 acres to be sold to colored only. Black Wall Street was born. Violence came to Black Wall Street on May the 30th, 1921. By June the 1st, 1921, Greenwood had started being burnt to the ground. There was property loss of nearly $2 million, which would be $50 million in today's money. And there were nearly 300 dead. No one was ever prosecuted for this racial massacre. John W. Rogers Jr., a businessman, a great-grandson of one of Greenwood's businessmen, said this recently: Greenwood shows that when we are left to our own devices and don't have a knee to our neck, we can achieve extraordinary things. It shows you that, unfortunately, so many times in our history, when Black folks get a few steps ahead, we get pulled back down. It's why the wealthy gap is in this country is so dramatically worse than it was 25 or 40 years ago. Next, I'll talk about places you know and facts you may not know. Central Park, New York City. Seneca Valley was one of the main Black settlements in New York City during the 19th century, located from West 82nd Street to West 89th Street in what is now part of Central Park. It had 264 residents, 3 churches, 2 schools, and 3 cemeteries, until its destruction in 1885. Seneca Valley was started in 1825 when landowners John and Elizabeth Whitehead sold 200 lots of land. A 25-year-old African-American, Andrew Williams, bought the first 3 lots for $125. The AME Zion Church purchased 6 lots, and Epiphany Davis, a store clerk, purchased 12 lots for $578. By the time the township was raised, 30% of its 264 residents were Irish Americans. Seneca Valley lasted only 32 years. When New York City began to grow and people wanted an open space, a park, they obtained Seneca Valley through eminent domain. Roughly 1,600 residents were displaced. Although landowners were compensated, their land was undervalued. There is no history of the graves in the 3 cemeteries ever being relocated. Next, I'll talk to you about hidden gems in the DMV. All slaves within the city were emancipated on April the 16th, 1862. North Brentwood was the earliest incorporated African-American community in PG County. It was planned by Captain Wallace Bartlett, a veteran commander of the U.S. colored troops. African Americans were limited to areas where they could purchase homes. North Brentwood and its surrounding communities were known locally as sundown towns because Blacks were known to be arrested by police if caught outside after dark. Alexandria, Virginia, was a vibrant slave quarter. Black communities were established there. Some of them, the Hill, the Hump, and Colored Rosemont. By 1910, there was almost a continuous band of African-American neighborhoods surrounding the city center and edging Alexandria's boundaries. In D.C., the U Street corridor was called Black Broadway from the 1900s to the 1950s. African Americans subject to Jim Crow laws in other parts of town were free to own businesses here, and built a city within a city. The city's oldest Black-owned bank, Industrial Bank, gave loans to other businesses. The U Street corridor had the first Black YMCA and scores of churches. One such business that is still in existence today is the Lee Flower Shop. It was established in 1945. There was also Whitlow Hotel and Hammond Dance Studio. So I have said all this. Why? Lest we forget. So now I will be reading a poem by my sister Mary Ann Moses. This poem inspired me to write what I did. And it's called Let's Not Forget. As we listen to the tragedies of today, let's not forget the tragedies of yesteryear. The 4 Black children that were killed in a church. Yeah, right place, doing the right thing, bombed by someone insane. We continue to mourn for children, teens, and adults who were killed in schools, colleges, homes, cars, shot on the streets. When will the madness stop? We don't need the cops. I don't want to see my brother or sister in jail or killed. So let's not forget. Start to heal with love, prayer, peace, joy, and kindness. I've shed too many tears, mourned too many losses, visited too many lockdowns, downs. Tell the children, tell the grandchildren, pass on the stories of their ancestors so they can know all they did for us, so we could be free. Working for 50 cents a week, bent over, picking cotton, with the hot sun beaming down on their back. Yeah, take them back so they'll know. The KKK, segregation, non-voting rights era, the water hoses, and the dogs. Yeah, the dogs. Let's not forget. Let's not forget our forefathers, some who were hung from a tree, shot and whipped to death because they wanted to be free. Riding down the highways, I look to my left, I look to my right, I see trees that my ancestors had to walk through at night, sometimes without light, to get to freedom. Let's not forget all the rallies, the boycotts, the sacrifices our ancestors did so that we could have a better life. Let's not forget the other races that made sacrifices through love, transportation, prayers, and refuge. Some were killed just because they helped. Most of all, let's not forget who gave up his life on a cross for us over 2,000 years ago. It wasn't for show, but for us to be free. Jesus. Let's not forget. Let's not forget.